Welcome. I am Pandorama. Like I said, this is another deck tech for the Commander Randamonium segment of the stream. I pull one commander at random, and then I make a deck tech about it, and then we bring it into battle on Wednesday nights against other decks and see how it does. How I pick the random commander is I just go to edhrec.com and hit the random button until I hit a commander that I own, and then build a deck on it. And then yeah, so this week our commander is Zacama Primal Calamity. I actually laughed when I hit this commander because I've already built a couple decks on it in the past. So this time I tried to take it in a different direction. Before I built this around strictly dinosaurs and then strictly like a lands type deck. This time I tried to go a little differently. I still included some dinosaurs, still included some lands types of cards, but I tried to go more in the big spells type just route this time. So that's what we're going to be doing. So let's quickly go into the deck. Again, Zacama. He is a 9 mana commander, so pretty pricey. He's an Elder Dinosaur with Vigilance, Reach, and Trample. When he enters the battlefield, if I cast it, untap all lands you control. Then you can pay 2 and a red. He deals 3 damage to target creature. 2 and a green, destroy target artifact or enchantment. 2 and a white, you gain 3 life. So he does a lot. When he comes into play, untap all your lands, then you immediately get to use his abilities. So he's a pretty powerful commander overall. That's why he's so expensive, because he's so powerful. He is a 9/9 too, so with trample, so that's pretty scary right out of the box. So usually this commander, once it hits the table, if he hasn't gotten countered yet, he's likely to get removed. So a lot of this deck, as you'll see, is about protecting our commander. So yeah, let's get into it. I'll go down the list real quick. So we have 24 creatures. So we have I sorted this by mana cost. So we have Sakura Tribe Elder, Dryad of the Elysian Grove, Eternal Witness, Kinjali's Sunwing, Rada Heart of Keld, Runic Armasaur, Thrashing Bronodon, Wayward Swordtooth, Zerta the Dawnmaker, Beast Whisperer, Ripjaw Raptor, Temur Sabertooth, Brash Tawner, Quartzwood Crasher, Seedborn Muse, Xenagos God of Revels, Carnage Tyrant, Atali Primal Storm, Goring Ceratops, Nyxbloom Ancient, Verdant Sun's Avatar, Polyraptor, Zetalpa Primal Dawn, and Gulta Primal Hunger. And then once again, I'll go through some of the creatures and some of the combos that we have, some of the theme of the deck that we're trying to do. Once I get through the whole deck list here, I'll explain more of what the deck is actually trying to do. So there's a lot of fun things that we're doing in this deck. So going with sorceries, we have 8 sorceries. So we have Farseek, Rampant Growth, Winds of Abandon, Cultivate, Kadama's Reach, Wrath of God, Rishkar's Expertise, and Blasphemous Act. I'll also be posting this, since this is on Tapped Out, I'll be posting the link to this deck list. If you're watching on YouTube, it's just going to be in the description. And if you're watching this on Twitch, it's going to be in the, I believe, description as well. It'll be like a highlight, so it should be in the description too. So I'm going to go over here to Instant. We got Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares, Boros Charm, Heliod's Intervention, Heroic Intervention, Beast Within, Chaos Warp, Generous Gift, Crossing Grip, Teferi's Protection, and Return of the Wild Speaker. So I also want to point out too that all of these cards are cards that I own, so I didn't just throw a deck together of just, hey, what are the best possible cards I can throw in this deck? No. Since I'm going to be playing this deck as well, I had to use cards that I own. So obviously there's going to be cards that maybe should go in this deck that I just don't own, and fortunately I don't have the budget to just go out and buy them. Otherwise, yeah, they would totally be in this deck. So these are all cards that I've owned that I used to put the deck together. It also kind of makes it a little bit more interesting too, just trying to find cards that I own that go well into this deck. So So let's go over to artifacts. We have Soul Ring, of course, because it goes in every deck. Wayfarer's Bauble, Arcane Signet, Swiftfoot Boots, Lifecrafter's Bestiary, Vidalcan Orrery, and the Great Henge. Going over to Enchantment, Elemental Bond, Growing Rights of Itlamok, Rhythm of the Wild, Bear Umbra, Guardian Project, Smothering Tithe, Wilderness Reclamation, Asceticism, Marari's Wake, Fiery Emancipation, Sunbird's Invocation, Warstorm Surge, Zendikar Resurgent. And then we got a bunch of lands. I'm not going to go over the land base too much. I just wanted to point out that I have basically 15 basic lands. My general thing is if I have a 2-color commander, I put in probably about 30. Once it gets down to 3, 4, 5, that's when I start to go a little less. So for the 3-color, I tend to stay around the 15 range for basic lands. Just because you need a lot of dual lands for 3 colors because you're trying to make sure you have an even mana base. So I did try to put in some more rampy lands. So like Blighted Woodland, go get 2 lands. We have Field of the Dead's just good in this deck because we're going to have a lot of differently named lands, so might as well get benefit out of it some way. So Field of the Dead, create 2/2 black zombie if you have 7 or more lands with different names. Pretty good. Croson Verge, again, it's a land that ramps us, so pay 2, tap it, go get a forest and a plains card, put them on the battlefield tapped. Pretty good. And then the other one is... I thought I had another one in here. Hang on. I thought I had 3 of them. We had Croson Verge. Oh, I guess I only had 2. So Croson Verge and Blighted Woodland then. 2 ramps. Yeah, so that's the deck. Again, cards that I owned, put in through the deck. This deck was actually a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be to make. Like I said before, I've made it a couple other times, but trying to go big flashy spells and then trying to make sure we ramp early in the game, there were actually a lot of cuts I had to make for the deck. So a lot of cards that I really wanted to put in, but just had to exclude just based off of other cards that I felt were better, more suited to what we were trying to do in the deck. Yeah, so when I was playtesting this deck, I found a couple interesting things with it. A couple cards I didn't actually realize were going to be really good until I playtested and realized, wow, these cards are broken in the deck. And they do the exact same thing. So the best land I think we have is Sanctum of Eternity. It comes in, you tap it for colorless, but the more important part is you can pay 2, tap it, return target commander you own from the battlefield to your hand, activate this ability only during your turn. So Zacama costs 9, and then this basically costs 3 to activate, so 12 mana. If you have 13 mana, you basically go infinite on mana with this, because what you're doing is you're casting Zacama for 9. When you cast them, you basically tap all your mana. So you cast them for 9, but you have 13 up, so you're going to float 4. Sanctum of Eternity will untap because it's a land. So then you pay 2, tap this, puts the comma back in your hand. You still have the 9 mana left. I mean, you have some floating, so I guess you didn't have to have floating mana, but for this example, we'll have floating mana. Play Zacama, untap all your lands again, float mana, of course, because you're tapping all your lands, and then just keep doing that. So just keep casting Zacama, keep bouncing him in your hand, casting him again, bouncing him in your hand, floating all the mana that you have. Yeah, and then you go infinite on mana, and then, of course, with infinite mana, you can dump that into Zacama, deal 3 damage to target creature, so you can just wipe out all the creatures on your opponent's side, destroy all the artifacts and enchantments, and then gain infinite life. So, pretty broken. We have a creature that does that as well. Temur Sabertooth. So this is actually 1 less mana. So for 2 mana, you return another creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, Temur Sabertooth gains indestructible until end of turn. So again, play Zacama by tapping all your lands, untap all your lands, bounce Zacama for 2 mana, cast them again, tapping all your lands, then untap your lands. So yeah, and then you just go infinite on mana again. So a couple broken ways. I didn't even see them originally when I was building the deck. Originally, I was going to take Sanctum of Eternity out, and then I realized, wait a minute, bouncing Zacama, he has a cast trigger. That's broken, so left it in, and it's basically one of the best cards in the deck. So So that's a couple ways of just comboing off going infinite. There are a couple ways that we have in the deck to benefit off of going infinite with that. I think the best one is probably Warstorm Surge. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So again, if we're playing Zacama, bouncing Zacama, playing him again, we're dealing 9 damage every single time that we do that, and then everybody's just dead. So again, it's pretty broken. Our best card draws are going to be Elemental Bond and Guardian Project. So every time Zacama is going to come in, we draw a card, draw 2 cards if we have them both on the field. Yeah. Some of the best ramps that we have, I mean, we have our standard ramps. So we have, Farseek, Rampant Growth, Cultivate, Dama's Reach. We have Sakura Tribe Elder, Soul Ring, Wayfarer's Bauble, Arcane Signet. So all the standard ramps. And then we have some just broken ramps in this, especially in this deck. So Mirari's Wake, 5 mana, creatures you control get +1/+1. Doesn't really matter in this deck, but the more important part is whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana to your mana pool of any type that land produced. So basically all our mana taps for double. Zendikar Resurgence, the same way. It's just a couple extra mana because, of course, you also get to draw a card off of this. So it just does 2 things in one. So all our lands basically tap for double. And then whenever we cast a creature spell, we draw a card as well. Another thing with this is, especially with the ramp, is Nyx Bloom Ancient. If you tap a permanent for mana, produces 3 times as much of that mana instead. So just even more broken if we're constantly bouncing Zacama, playing him, tapping our lands. If we have a Nyx Bloom Ancient out, it's just so broken at that point. So yeah, so that's basically what we're trying to do with this deck. Big splashy spells, trying to keep playing Zacama over and over and over again, activating his abilities. Growing Rites of Itlimoc was one of those cards that I was floating on, but the ability to go search for creatures, and then if we're casting Zacama and putting him back in our hand and casting him again, Growing Rites can be really good, especially if we have 3 or 4 creatures on the battlefield, because then all of a sudden we're untapping 3 mana, tapping 3 mana, untapping 3 mana, tapping 3 mana, so it gets really good. Rhythm of the Wild is really good in this deck, especially with Zacama, because creature spells we control cannot be countered. So if we're playing against a blue deck, this is really good because Zacama will most likely be countered if we're playing against a blue deck. So this basically protects him. Can also give him haste with that Riot. So really, really good card in this deck. Bear Umbra is really good. Generally, probably not having this on Zacama, but I guess we could have it on Zacama, but I'd rather probably have it on a different creature. Zacama's already going to have our lands come into play, tap or untap our lands when it comes into play, and then if we have a creature, we can basically tap those lands, attack with the creature, untap those lands, tap them again, have tons of mana. So, but I mean, it could go on Zacama as well. Giving him +2/+2 since he already has Trample is pretty good. Smothering Tithe is just another great card for ramping. Wilderness Reclamation, untap all our lands. Asceticism is a card I'm actually putting in more and more decks. Basically gives all our creatures hexproof, and then it can regenerate our creatures. So if somebody goes to try to remove our creatures, it's 2 mana, regenerate, they don't die. Yeah, I'm putting this in a lot more decks. Just that everything has hexproof part is really, really good. Fire Emancipation, just a broken card in this deck, especially with Zacama's ability, deals 3 damage to target creature. If somebody has like an 8 toughness creature, boom, it dies with 3 mana. And then Zacama, when it attacks, because it has Trample, it's the 27 damage right there. If somebody has like 5 or 6 toughness worth of creatures on their board, they're just dead to commander damage at that point. Sunbird's Invocation, really good card in this deck because we're playing a lot of big spells. I mean, if we have this on the field when Zacama hits, we're going to look at our top 9 cards and cast something with, what is it, 9? Reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. You may cast a card revealed this way with converted mana cost. Yeah, so 9 or less without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So, again, really broken when you're playing a deck with a lot of big spells. Our removal, Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares, Heliod's Intervention I thought was pretty good because it has an X in its cost, so destroy X target artifacts, or if for some reason we're getting attacked early on in the game, which is more than likely, if we have a lot of mana, we can dump a lot of it into X, and we gain twice X life, so it can put us ahead that way. Beast Within, Chaos Warp, Generous Gift, Corrosive Grip, just basically all the standard type of cards you would see for removal. We have a lot of protection in this deck, of course. Going over to artifacts, so Swiftfoot Boots. I had Lightning Greaves originally in this deck. I just took it out because if we're going to be doing the bouncing of Zacama with what is it? Scavenger? No, yeah, not Scavenger Grounds. Sanctum of Eternity. It does say target commander, so if we have Lightning Greaves on it, we can't target it. So we don't really want that. But if we have, I don't know, Swiftfoot Boots on it, we can target it. Again, the equipment would go off, but I mean, it's equip 1, and if we're untapping all of our lands every time we cast them, it's so easy to just move it over to pay the 1 mana. So I thought Swiftfoot Boots was better. And then we also have Heroic Intervention, Boros Charm, Teferi's Protection, and like I said before, we have Asceticism. So a lot of different ways to protect our commander, Rhythm of the Wild, because we're going to need to protect our commander. Vidalcanori's in this deck just because, like I said in the last video, Vidalcanori is just my card. It's the card I like the most that I own. It's kind of my pride and joy card. As you can see, I do have the foil version of this card, which I think is a more expensive version of it for the edition that it is. So every deck I build, a Vidalcanor, and it can go in every deck. I mean, casting Zacama at its instant speed at the end of an opponent's turn is also pretty good. So, yeah. So card draw, as you saw before, Guardian Project, Elemental Bond. Turn of the Wild Speaker is pretty good. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control. So Zacama comes out, cast this card, draw 9 cards. Pretty good. Similar card to that, Rishkar's Expertise. Again, Zacama comes out, cast this card, draw 9 cards, and then this gives you extra benefit of being able to cast something with mana cost 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost as well. So, pretty good. We also have Lifecrafter's Bestiary, so we get to scry at the beginning of our upkeep, and then whenever we cast a creature spell, we can pay green, and if we do, we draw a card. So, cool thing with this is when we cast Zacama, all of our lands untap, so we'll always have that green that we can pay. We do have a few board wipes in this deck because Zacama does cost 9, so and there's a lot of bigger spells in this deck, so it could be where we don't really do anything early on in the game. Maybe our opponents are just going off with creatures, so we get to like turn 5 or 6 and we're getting hit a lot. We don't have anything on the board, so we have, Winds of Abandon's pretty good, so more than likely you're going to cast this for its overload cost. So exile target creature you don't control. For each creature exiled this way, its controller searches the library for a basic land card. Those players put those cards onto the battlefield tapped and shuffle the libraries, or you can overload for 6. So overload is, you can cast this card for its overload cost. If you do, change its text by replacing all instances of target with each. So basically this is just a 6 mana, exile all your opponent's creatures. They do get lands off of this, but I mean, if they're going off early in the game and they don't have card draw, say they have like 1 or 2 cards left in their hand, you cast this for 6, exile their whole board. Yes, they have more lands, but they have nothing to really play with those lands. So this can be really good. And then Wrath of Gods, just probably one of the best board wipes in the game, I think. Just 4 mana, destroy all creatures. It does say they can't be regenerated, so it works against our asceticism, but again, we're not really using asceticism for its regenerate. We're using it more for the hexproof, and more than likely we're not going to Wrath of God while we have a Zacama on the field, so we won't really need to at that point. And then of course Blasphemous Act, deal 13 damage to each creature. For basically you're casting this for 1 mana. It's a 1 mana board wipe, one of the best ones in the game. Our creatures are pretty straightforward. Dryad lets us play additional lands on each of our turns. Our lands can tap for anything, or any color basically. Eternal Witness, this is my first deck I'm actually going to play with an Eternal Witness. I'm going to see how it does. So 3 mana, when it enters battlefield, you may return target card from your graveyard to your hand. With the amount of gross artifacts, enchantments, even creatures we're playing in this deck, it's more than likely that something's going to get removed. This could be a 3 mana, get that thing back into our hand. So again, like if we're going to go combo off with like Warstorm Surge, somebody goes and destroys it, we can play Eternal Witness, get back in our hand, play it again. So pretty good. Gonna see how that does. And then of course we have some dinosaurs. So Kinjali Sunwing does hurt our opponents because creatures the opponents control, they enter battlefield tapped. Rada's in here because we're gonna have a lot of lands. Again, Rada gets +X until end of turn, where X is the number of lands you control. We do have some ways to give her trample as well. So we included in the lands portion Kessig Wolfrun. We don't even need to add anything to X. Just pay 2 mana. Target creature gets +X/+7 gains trample to end of turn. So we do have ways of getting her really big and giving her trample. And of course, she also has first strike. So Runic Armasaur, another dinosaur. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of a creature or land, we get to draw a card. So more than likely, players are going to be doing stuff with their creatures, and if they do, we get to draw a card. Thrashing Bonodon. Good way of getting destroying artifacts or enchantments, so it's a good removal card. Wayward Swordtooth is good. It's a 5/5 that for 3 mana. Can attack or block though unless we have City's Blessing, which we generally will. And then we get to play additional lands. Zerta the Dawnmaker is really good in this deck. Abilities you activate that aren't mana abilities cost 2 less to activate. This effect can't reduce the mana, and that costs less than 1 mana. So it works really well with Zacama because its abilities are 2 in a red, 2 in a green, 2 in a white. So if we have Zerta on the battlefield, all of a sudden Zacama's abilities become red, green, and white. So a lot cheaper, which is going to be amazing. Beast Whisperer, really good card draw whenever you cast a creature. Ripjaw Raptor. Really cool thing with this is whenever Ripjaw Raptor is dealt damage, draw a card. So if we have this on the battlefield in Zacama, we can actually pay the 3 to deal 3 damage to Ripjaw Raptor. And when we do, it survives because it's a 4/5 and we get to draw a card. So basically it's 3 mana, draw a card. So, and it's a dinosaur. Temur Sabertooth. Brash Taunter I thought was also really good in this deck. So if you have like Brash Taunter out, Fiery Emancipation in Zacama, pretty much over at that point. So Brash Taunter, whenever it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to your opponent. You can pay 3 mana and tap it to fight another target creature. So you can have this. You can even pay 3 mana, tap this, fight Zacama, deal 9 damage to somebody. But again, like you can even pay the 3, deal 3 damage. Brash Taunter. It has indestructible, so it'll survive. Then you use that 3 damage, deal it to an opponent. Or if you have Fire Emancipation out, pay 3, deal 9 damage to Brash Taunter, deal 9 damage to an opponent. So thought it was a really good include in this deck. I think it could do a lot of work. Quartzwood Crasher was actually a last minute. I actually switched this out with, I think it was Ragesaur Alpha or something. It was with it was a dinosaur that gave all other dinosaurs haste, but since we're not playing like an all dinosaur deck, and we have other ways of giving our creatures haste, like we got Rhythm of the Wild over here. We have a Xenagos, which can give creatures haste. So I thought it would be better to put Quartzwood Crasher in. 5 mana, 6/6 is pretty good. It has trample. Whenever one or more creatures you control with trample deal combat damage to a player, create an XX green dinosaur beast creature token with trample, or X is the amount of damage those creatures dealt to that player. So again, we attack with Zacama, say 6 damage gets through, we create a 6/6 with trample. We have Fire Emancipation out. If we deal a 27 damage to somebody, all of a sudden we create 27/27. A lot of gross things we can do. Seedborn Muse is really good because on everybody's untap step, we're untapping as well, so all of our lands will untap, so we get to activate Zacama's ability on everybody's turn. Xenagos is really good. It'll give Zacama haste. It also will give him +X/+X where X is equal to his power, so give him haste, make him an 18/18. Carnage Tyrant, really good. Just he's a dinosaur. He has trample and hexproof, can't be countered. Really good creature. Atali, really good dinosaur. When it attacks, exile top card of each player's library. Then you may cast any number of non-land cards without paying their mana costs. Really good. Roaring Ceratops, basically, when it attacks, all of our other creatures that are attacking gain double strike until end of turn. And then we have Verdant Sun's Avatar. If we have this out while we're consistently bouncing Zacama, it's just another way of gaining infinite life because we're going to gain life equal to its toughness every time. And this works with all the other creatures too, so whenever a creature comes into play, we gain life equal to its toughness. Polyraptor, I think, can be super broken in this deck as well. Whenever it's dealt damage, create a token that's a copy of Polyraptor. So if we're going infinite on mana, We can have Zacama just keep dealing damage to our Polyraptors and basically get infinite Polyraptors because it'll deal 3 damage to the first one, so it'll leave it at 2 toughness. Then we deal another 3 damage, get 2 Polyraptors based off of that, and then just keep going and going and going. We have infinite Polyraptors, which again, with Warstorm Surge, just means everybody's dead. And then rounding it out with our gross dinosaurs, we have Zatalpa and Galta. So 2 of the most, I think, broken dinosaurs. Galta, of course, you can always just cast it for 2 mana, which I think is broken. And then Zatalpa is just a big creature with a lot of keywords on it. Flying, Double Strike, Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible. Yeah, so that's pretty much the deck. Like I said, we're going to try to maybe not even necessarily kill people with Zacama, just kill people using his ability to untap all of our lands. So there's a lot of different directions this deck can go. Playtesting it, I think it's really gross. We'll see on Wednesday when we actually bring it into play how well it does. But I think it's going to do a lot of work. I think it's going to be really broken. I think the only downside with the deck is we're going to be ramping a lot in our early game. So we're not going to have too many things out on the board. So we might be taking our beatings early in the game, but if we can make it to the late game, which I think we can with our board wipes and just being able to stall, we do have a lot of creatures that are low cost that have high toughness too, which I think can help us. So get to that later game. I think if we can get to the later game, I think we pretty much got this in the bag. So real quick, I did notice that they actually have some stats over here on the right with tapped out. So it breaks down how much we have in each category here on a pie chart, which I think is cool. And then our mana curve, as you can see, a lot of our mana curve is 2, 3, and 4. 2 and 3 because we have a lot of just ramping. Ramping and protection, I think, are mostly in our 2, 3. A lot of removal here. And then you can see we have the bigger spells. Galta is obviously the 12, but of course that could even be that can slide into a 2 mana slot because if we have Zacama out, it basically will cost like 2 mana. Even some of the 9 mana spells can cost less. Like Blasphemous Act is a 9 mana spell, but can easily be put in the 1 slot. So a lot of this that's down on this end can also be cast here, which I think Great Henge, 9 mana, easily be cast for 2. So a lot of this stuff that's down here can easily be cast for the low cost. So I think we have a really good mana curve here. Yeah, so we'll see how this deck does. Again, thank you guys for watching. This is the Deck Tech. Again, Commander Randamonium is a new segment to this channel and the stream. So we're going to try it again on Wednesday. If you didn't catch the last episode, it is up. Commander Randamonium episode 1. We used Grismald the Dread Sower. It worked really well. It was a really fun deck. Go ahead and check out that episode. Again, if you like what you just watched, want to see more content, go ahead and click that follow, click the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, and you'll get notified anytime we go live, anytime we have new stream or content to stream, or new videos get posted on YouTube. You can be the first to know. It does go a long way to helping the channel, letting me know that you guys like the content, want me to keep doing it. Any suggestions on maybe cards I could have added, go ahead and comment. I'd love to hear what you guys think you would maybe take Zacama in for a direction. Go ahead and post that in the comments. I love reading the comments. Again, just hearing about the comments helped me to put this together, make the video a little shorter, and have you also have access to the deck list as well. So again, that deck list will be posted in the description. And yeah, you can go check it out. Just leave comments on what you think. So I appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully you guys have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.